Governor Cuomo, it is great to have you on the podcast.
Good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with the breaking news yesterday, the mass shooting in Midtown Manhattan that killed 4, including an NYPD officer. We're learning the shooter appears to have driven from Nevada, was targeting the NFL headquarters, was carrying an M4 assault weapon. What was your first thought when you first heard the headlines yesterday? And what is your message to New Yorkers about what took place?
Moshe, obviously the first thought was sadness for the victims. Officer Islam had a pregnant wife, 2 sons. Right away, you go to their personal situation and their personal loss and what that family has to be dealing with, and the families of the other victims, 4 victims in total. Second, as a New Yorker, for myself, you almost go to a PTSD post 9/11, that kind of shock and that kind of fear, which has become all too frequent. We had Mr. Mangione, who had a similar type incident, acting out against the health industry. And then you go to the anger/futility of it. How many times do we have to see the same situation before we do something about it, right? We had the Sandy Hook shooting in Connecticut. 26 died. We passed in New York an assault weapon ban with Republicans, state legislature, Democrats and Republicans. Why? Because the assault weapons are so dangerous. And they're very difficult for law enforcement to handle because you have a clip of 20 or 30. It's very hard for someone to step in and you can kill many people before anyone can get near the shooter. Why do we not have an assault weapon ban in this nation? So I passed an assault weapon ban in New York. Great. And I believe it has saved lives, by the way. But you can buy a gun in Nevada and put it in the trunk and drive into New York. And the nation has been going around and around with this assault weapon ban. They haven't shown the courage, the intelligence in Washington to actually pass a national assault weapon ban. You don't use an assault weapon to go hunting. Nobody uses 20 bullets to shoot a deer or to go bird hunting. We want to have it. It's a target practice and they have competitions. It's a slippery slope, Second Amendment. I reject all of that.
Right. And of course, there's a Supreme Court ruling in regards to the New York laws a couple of years ago, too, that also sort of took your ability to pass new laws away from you.
That is exactly right. It's this political paralysis, right? The NRA, the gun rights activists, but it defies common sense. How many people have to die before you show the political courage to actually act? At one time, we allowed machine guns. And about 100 years ago, the nation said, no, the risk outweighs the reward, and outlawed machine guns. What's the difference between an assault weapon and a machine gun, basically?
I guess the question then is, Governor, given that it does not appear there's any support in Washington for passing anything further on the federal level, what can you do as the mayor of New York City to ensure the safety of the citizens here?
We passed the strongest laws in the country on a state level. I did that as governor, and obviously they apply to New York City. So there are no laws that we can pass that will stop this. You can't buy these type of weapons in New York, but can you buy it in another state, put it in the trunk, drive it in? Yes. And there is I can't tell you how many times since we passed that law, we've seen the same type of horrendous mass shootings. And once again, it's this political paralysis that we can't make common sense changes because the political process is responding to the extremes. And the extreme right has an extreme, in my opinion, gun rights position. Yes, even in AR-15.
So, I mean, is the solution here? New Yorkers just need to, be hyper aware. Do all offices now to need to double down on the security that they have? Because it sounds like what you're saying is that this is up to Washington at this point.
Well, you can't do anything on the weapons. I think what it also says to New York is, look, this is a reality check, right? We have had this political movement in New York and cities across the country, this hyper left movement that has demonized the police, that has disregarded public safety as a function. We used to say public safety is job one for government. And we went into a phase of political movement that said, defund the police, dismantle the police, basically demonize the police. The police are the problem. The police are the threat to public safety. The police are racists. And we defunded the police in New York City. Not me, I opposed it. I was governor when New York City defunded. I added more police to compensate.
Right. And you're running against somebody in Zohran Mamdani who advocated for that for a number of years.
Oh, and a movement that continues to advocate for that. And that's why I say it's a reality check. That is just wrong. And actually, it puts police officers' lives at risk when you spread that social media propaganda that the police are the problem, right? Not the criminals, not mentally ill people who may do damage. The police are the problem. Reduce the police because the police are the problem. You actually exacerbate this situation. You put more police officers' lives at risk, and you threaten civil society. It's even worse in New York because of New York is New York City, right? We are the big stage. We're the international stage. You want to make a statement, in New York City. Mr. Mangione wanted to make a statement about the health industry. He did it here, right? So you want to make a statement, you make it in the media capital of the world. That's New York City. That is not going to stop. So we have an added burden in New York because people will come here, as this man did, to make a statement. And we need to keep New Yorkers safe.
What do you make of Mamdani's, as we get into the race here, Governor, his alternative approach on policing, his creation of, he's proposing this new agency, the Department of Community Safety, to deal with mental health issues specifically? How do you think that will impact the safety of the residents of New York City?
Look, you have a mental health system. Yes, you have to deal with mental health issues. Mental health issues plus an assault weapon. Now that's TNT, right? That is a dangerous, dangerous situation. And that has happened. It did happen yesterday. It will happen again. So you need a police system that can actually keep New Yorkers safe and be prepared. What we have done is we have minimized the public safety function. We have demonized the police, literally reduced defund the police was literal. It was not a catchphrase. Reduce the budget for the police. I think we need to do the exact opposite. I would hire 5,000 more police. I would bolster the police in the subway system, on the streets, etc., and show the police the respect that they deserve. It's very easy for people to sit back and criticize. You go out there one day and do the job that a police officer does, and you put your life on the line to keep other people safe. And you leave your family every morning and kiss your child goodbye with that little question mark in your head, am I going to come back tonight? The NYPD, New York's finest, they deserve the highest respect and support, and they have not gotten that.
You don't think they get it from him?
I don't think they get it from that entire movement, and he echoes that movement, and it has gone on for years, and it continues. It's what they say today, or what they said yesterday. Hopefully, if there's any silver lining, if there's any rationality, this was a reality check. It was a moment that said, let's separate all this political dogma from the actual practicality of what happens in New York.
Let's talk about the race overall and Mamdani here. 33-year-old Democratic Socialist, assemblyman for just a couple terms, got more than 500,000 votes, more than any candidate in New York City primary history. You lost him by 13 points, Governor. You've had about a month since then, just over a month. What do you think you did wrong? Why do you think he was able to beat you by such a large margin? And what lessons have you taken away from that?
Well, you had a Democratic primary. He had about 5,000 and change votes. I had about 400,000 and change votes. So he won by about 100,000 votes. Democratic primary tends to be a smaller universe of voters. And you had a turnout in this election which was unlike anything that had been seen before. If you had the same turnout that you had in the last mayoral election, I actually got more votes than the person who won that election, who was obviously Mayor Adams, current mayor. You had a tremendous turnout of young people under 30 years old. And it was very passionate. It was about socialism. It was about Palestine and Gaza. That was also a major issue. It continues to be a major issue. And that dramatic increase in the number of young votes that he connected with, especially on social media, that I did not appeal to directly enough, that I'm correcting in the primary. Because, look, their issues are legitimate, right? Affordability is a major issue in this city and many, many other cities. And he connected with that issue. Now, he connected with the issue, the solutions are bogus. They're great slogans. And, social media with a film director mother, you can do great videos and 3-word slogans sound great. My late father, God rest his soul, used to say there's a difference between solutions that sound good and solutions that are good and sound. What he is proposing will not make any difference to solve the problem. Great catchy phrases, but it won't make a difference. And that actually frustrates the entire system and continues the cycle of skepticism and cynicism. People vote for someone, they made a lot of promises, sounded good, promised utopia, nothing happened. And now people are even more cynical about the system. I have never promised anything, proposed anything that I can't get done.
What's your alternative for dealing with the affordability crisis in the city?
Look, the affordability crisis runs on a number of levels. Primarily, it's about housing. And the basic problem in New York City on housing is that New York City government failed. It failed to build affordable housing. Now, the good news is building affordable housing is not rocket science, right? We're not talking about building a new LaGuardia airport, a new bridge that has to deal with the circumference of the planet, right, and the curvature of the earth. I built affordable housing in my 20s. I was housing and urban development secretary, built and rebuilt public housing all across the nation. It is doable. It requires a functional government. You have to cut the red tape. You have to be efficient. You have to be effective. You have to know how to do financing. You have to deal with the political NIMBYism that always rears its head, especially in New York, right? Everybody's opposed to everything.
Right. When we're talking about NIMBYism, we're talking about not in my backyard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry. I thought that was now an accepted term.
I just want to make sure everyone in the audience understands the phrase.
Yes.
Why do you think? I mean, you've made this argument in the primary. You're now running in the general. I should ask. We actually had Mayor Adams here a couple weeks ago, and his message when I said, how do you, what's your plan for the fall? He's like, Cuomo needs to get out. He had his chance in the primary. What's your response there to the people who are like, listen, you ran the primary. What are you doing trying again here, Governor?
Yeah, this is not about Mayor Adams. Both Mayor Adams and I share the belief that the assemblyman would be an existential threat to New York. He had his chance. Mayor Adams had his chance as mayor, and he did not perform as mayor. Right? That's what New Yorkers are saying. The city is not better than it was. So he had his chance. Democratic primary, he entered the Democratic primary, Mayor Adams, and he dropped out because he was not competitive for a number of reasons, the corruption scandals, the lack of performance, and because he made an arrangement with President Trump that alienated the Democrats in New York. The Democrats are still 70% of the electorate in general, in the general election. So I don't believe Mayor Adams is electable in this city. And I have said, I've accepted a proposal put forth by senior Democrats. It's common sense, but it's sort of inarguable. The stronger candidate in September should run, and the other candidate should defer, because that is the best, if not only way you can defeat the assemblyman.
So you're saying that, I mean, as we speak here, we're just over a month away, that at some point in September, if the polling indicates, whoever the polling indicates is the strongest competitor to Zohran Mamdani should stay in the race, and then the other person should get out.
Yes, because there's an elegance to that solution, and a truthfulness, right? Everyone who runs for office says, this is not about me. It's not about my ego. It's about serving the people of the city. Okay, well, if that's really true, then put the strongest candidate forward against Mr. Mamdani. And if it's not you, defer. So it's sort of inarguable that way. And when I first heard it, it took me a moment to pause, because it really just doesn't ask a basic question about your motivation and your characteristics, right? You believe you're doing this, what you do is a public service, and you want to get information out, and it's not about you and it's not about your ego. And then here's a proposition that tests that, right? Well, if we can find somebody who can do your position better than you, would you defer to that person? And you pause. But it is inarguable to me.
Do you think, I mean, he shows no signs of wanting to get out, regardless of what the polling says in September. Do you view Mamdani as such a threat to the future of New York City that in that scenario, you would say, okay, it's too important, I'll get out?
No, because I don't believe there's any way Mayor Adams is electable.
Is there any scenario that you see that if all of you guys stay in the race, you, Adams, Sliwa, is there any scenario where Mamdani is not the next mayor of New York City?
Yes, there is. It's not a probable scenario, but it is. In the primary election, I think he got away with very little scrutiny. And he was allowed to communicate his message, which he did on social media. And there was no scrutiny. There was no questioning, right? What's the solution to housing affordability? Freeze the rent. Great. 3 words, freeze the rent. I can remember 3 words. That's great, freeze the rent. Yeah, But freeze the rent, first of all, was done already under Bill de Blasio. Obviously, it didn't work. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today if it worked under de Blasio. Freeze the rent only does about 40% of the units. Freeze the rent leaves out what will happen to those buildings when the landlord can't pay the bills. But it sounded good. I think what's going to happen in the general is there's going to be more attention, more scrutiny, and people are going to dig a little deeper. Hopefully, the press actually starts to ask some questions, because what he has put forth superficially responds to the frustration, but it would produce nothing except thereby generating more frustration. Freeze the rent. Sounds great. Doesn't work. Free and fast buses. Great. Sounds great. But it doesn't make any sense. I'll build housing by raising taxes on corporations. Yes, but it's an impossible proposition that he puts forward.
Curious, you mentioned de Blasio there. You were governor while he was the mayor. They share some things in common, Zohran Mamdani and Bill de Blasio. I'm curious, as you think about them, what the differences are there? Do you have concerns about a Mamdani being mayor in a way that what you experienced with de Blasio would be the same or different? How do you sort of square those two?
I think there are similarities. Now, in truth and candor, and I don't think it'll come as a surprise to anyone, I think de Blasio was the worst mayor in modern political history. He was a political messenger, de Blasio. He was promulgating a political theory. He was not a manager of New York who actually got things done, tackled the problems, made progress. That's not what he thought the job was. The assemblyman said that de Blasio was basically the best mayor in his opinion in modern history, and said something interesting in an interview, that he sees the job of mayor as being a messenger, because that's really what he does. He is about rhetoric. He's about political philosophy. He's about a movement. He's about advocacy, globalized intifada, demonized police, one-liners, and political theory. But he has no plans and no experience to implement any plan that would actually produce progress for New Yorkers. I'm the exact opposite. I believe government is a service entity that should make progress in your life. So you say, you know what? The government actually performed X, and my life is better because of X. My life is better because the state government built the new LaGuardia Airport. My life is better because it passed scholarships for middle-class students to go to college. My life is better because Cuomo passed marriage equality, and now I can get married and have a family. Government made a difference in my life. Government is not working for people. Even under the Biden administration, what could you say at the end of the Biden administration? They did this for me, and my life is better because of it, and I want to continue it. And when you have all this extremism, right? The extreme left, the extreme right, they feel disassociated, disconnected. The system isn't working for me. Because the system isn't working for them. Because they got hollow political promises that wind up amounting to nothing. And they are frustrated and they are angry. And the more frustrated and angry I become, the more extreme I become.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're seeing numbers these days when it comes to Americans' belief that democracy is even working for them. The numbers continue to go down. It's one of the reasons why, we see Zohran Mamdani and his brand of democratic socialism gain popularity. And one of the reasons people point to is they feel that the system as it existed, Governor Cuomo, has, as you've explained, like has not been effective, right? Is not changing their lives for the good. And they see you as somebody who was governor for a long time, has been in the system for a long time, as part of that. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you explain, to voters who obviously you weren't able to win in the primary? How do you explain to voters in general that no, I understand, I've been a part of the system, but I'm going to change it in some way?
Well, I have not been mayor of the city of New York.
Right.
I was governor of the state of New York. And as the governor of the state of New York, I touched your life. I put in the most progressive tax code in the United States of America. I reduced the taxes for middle-class people. I passed the highest minimum wage in the United States of America, first big state to pass marriage equality. Improve the education system, more funding than ever before in history, where we fund our education system per pupil at the highest rate in the United States of America. So there is no reasonable person who could say the state government did not make progress. I inherited a state government that was broken, much like the city government is now broken. It was politically paralyzed. The legislature couldn't get anything done, much like the city council. It wasn't producing. They couldn't even get a budget done on time. It was called the most dysfunctional government in the United States of America. And we turned that around. And that was hard. State government is bigger than the city government, right? The budget is about double. The legislature is about 4 times the size. More complicated legislature because you have Democrats and Republicans when I was there. And try to make a marriage between Republicans and Democrats, that's an art form. So, but we did that, and we can do it in New York City also. Moshe, the problems in New York City are not an act of God, right? We're not dealing with 9/11. We're not dealing with Hurricane Sandy. We're not dealing with a fiscal crisis. We're not dealing with COVID. We're not dealing with anything outside of our control. What are we dealing with? An affordable housing crisis because we didn't build affordable housing. And we know how to build affordable housing. We can do it all day long. The government was just incompetent. That's easily solved. We have a public safety issue. Why? Because we responded to this extreme political left, defund the police, dismantle the police are the problem. That was wrong. That was just wrong. And we can correct that. You hire 5,000 police officers. You get mentally ill people, mentally ill homeless people, the help they need. It's been done for decades. Get them the mental health services that they need. And by the way, we're not socialists. We are entrepreneurs. This is a business capital. We don't do a lot of farming in New York. I don't know if you've noticed. We are doing business, right? We want to attract business. We want to attract jobs. That's opportunity. And that has to be changed. There's a great microcosm of the problem. I worked for a year as governor to get Amazon to come to New York and open a second national headquarters. Would have been tens of thousands of jobs, average salary $15, jump-started the whole high-tech economy. And they were going to go to Queens, right? Not Manhattan. They wanted to go to Queens and would have brought a whole economic cluster to Queens. The socialists opposed it and stopped it. Why? We're anti-business. We're anti-corporate. That will bankrupt New York. It will bankrupt New York because that is not what makes this place work.
So you believe Zohran Mamdani will bankrupt New York?
The socialist theory that says we are anti-business, anti-corporate. Yes, that does not work for New York. New York has to be aggressively pro-growth, pro-economic development. I want to bring your business here. You have a business right now in California. I'll come visit you and try to get you to come back to New York. I want to go to get the AI industry and say to the AI industry, you know what? You're a growing industry. I want you in New York, and I'll find you a building, and I'll put together an economic package that helps you.
What do you make of the fact that they'll push back, and you've certainly heard it from Mamdani voters and young voters, that they feel that people are getting left behind?
Well, people are getting left behind. So what is the answer? Uh, Socialism, where we become anti-business, anti-growth, anti-new jobs? No. You have to believe that you can have more opportunity in New York, and more industries are coming and more jobs are opening up, and your future is bright because maybe you can get one of those new jobs. And that is all true. So we have done this to ourselves. Our best days are ahead if we just get out of our own way, Moshe.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a couple books out. I imagine you've heard of this idea of abundance. There's a few books out in the past year, specifically going after Democrats. And it's interesting because some of the lessons are sort of lessons learned from Robert Moses, maybe learned too well by Democrats. So they created a whole bunch of red tape. Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan has actually said, you should rename red tape blue tape based on the issues that he sees in California, in New York, in blue states. What do you make of the sense that Democrats have gotten in their own ways and made it impossible to build anything and be effective effective examples of what good government can be? Because we've seen also, I mean, during your time as governor, you saw in post-COVID the number of people leaving blue states for red states. What do you make of that overall?
Yeah. I believe it's all hype.
And wait, it's hype that people left?
No, not hype. It's the theory that the Democrats have tangled themselves in red tape. Do we have red tape? Yes. That's government, right? That's the functionality of government. Some of it is self-imposed, our own regulations. We're trying to do too many good things with every initiative. Some of it is the nature of the beast, right? Some of it is dealing with community opposition and political opposition. But we have shown time and time again that big projects are very feasible. New York City, it can take you 4 years to get a building permit, okay? Now, if it's going to take you 4 years to get a building permit, first, you may not even endeavor to do it. Second, it is very expensive because you're paying the lawyers and the architects and the government relations people for 4 years. I built LaGuardia Airport in 4 years. With all our red tape, I built the largest infrastructure project in the United States of America. A new bridge across the Hudson River, replacing the Tappan Zee Bridge. I named it after my father, the Mayor Cuomo Bridge. The largest infrastructure project in the United States, built on time, on budget. It's not red tape. It's competence. It's ability. It's knowing how to make government work. This theory that government doesn't work because of the regulations. No, we just don't try, or we don't have executives who have the ability to do it. But yes, if government is accomplishing nothing, then you drive the frustration, you drive the opposition, you drive extremism. The answer is make the government work, which means elect people who know what they're doing and who can get something done.
We talked a bit about your record as governor. Two things that came up. We solicited questions from our audience, and a couple issues that came up. No surprise to you, the concern from some women in our community is related to the allegations that led to your resignation as governor. The investigations into about a dozen women and their allegations in your office. What is your message to voters who are concerned about that? Your treatment of women. Curious, Governor, in retrospect, also, do you regret resigning from being governor?
I resigned because I didn't want to distract the government on that issue. It was right post COVID. There was a lot for government to get done. And this was at the height of the Me Too movement, and it was a very politically charged issue. I have said, Moshe, to the extent I offended anyone by anything I said, I apologized. It was unintentional. But if I said anything that you found offensive, I apologize. It was unintentional. And by the way, that stands true for every day, because you have a whole spectrum of people who find certain statements appropriate, et cetera. So if I said anything that anyone found inappropriate or offensive, I apologize. And I mean that sincerely. And I become hyper careful. I slip once in a while. I have 30-year-old daughters. The other day I referred to someone as honey, and I got an earful. I get it. But there's also been 4 years now where those situations were thoroughly investigated. And nothing has come of them. So just separate people who felt offended by something I said, an action I took. I took photos with them and I put my arm on their back. I kissed them on the cheek. I apologize if you find that offensive. And I mean that sincerely. I appreciate that sensitivity. But in terms of an illegal action, those cases now have been gone through for 4 years, tens of millions of dollars in legal fees, and it's amounted to nothing.
And then the other issue that comes up is obviously your tenure during COVID, some of the decisions that you made related to nursing homes. Curious, 5 years removed, we had Pete Buttigieg on the podcast last week. And, I asked him actually the question that Kamala Harris had gotten on The View, saying, would you have done anything different from Biden? And one of the key things that he brought up was the schools, realizing now what we know now about the impact that school closures had on students, long term here. He wishes they could go back and revise those decisions. In regards to your decisions during COVID related to nursing homes, anything else, with 5 years perspective, Governor, anything you wish you could take back or reimagine how things unfolded there in 2020?
Almost. When you watch the game tape Monday morning on COVID, you would do many, many things different. I made the best decisions. Remember where New York was. We had COVID first and worse than anybody else. And we were basically the international laboratory for COVID. And I had the best health experts from around the world, not just from around the country, around the world, who were literally in my office because we were the laboratory. We were the petri dish. What is going to happen? And nobody knew. Nobody knew, not the best health experts on the globe. And they gave me their best advice, which was differing, by the way, and changed, by the way, over time. And I made the best decisions that I could based on the information that we had. When you look back, would you do things differently? Definitely, because you now know the facts. But I fully own what I did during COVID. And people died during COVID. And, the buck stops on my desk. I feel responsible in my own head. I feel responsible for everything that happened during COVID. And nursing homes happened to be the situs of the greatest death toll, not just in New York, but all across the country. That's where the people were who were most vulnerable. We followed federal guidance and we did all that, but people died. And I carry that burden, and I feel very badly, and I wish nobody died. And frankly, I wish that I wasn't even having to make those decisions. When you sit in a room with all these medical professionals and they say, well, I'm telling you the best I know, but we don't really know, right? So you made the best decisions you could at the time. Much of the information turned out to be incorrect. You get COVID by touch. So we cleaned every subway system, every bus, every car. Oops, we're wrong. It doesn't communicate by.
By the way, it was super nice back then when the subways were super clean like that, Governor.
Well, not to digress, but they can be that way again, Moshe, if you could do it then, where you got every homeless person out of every train and every station every night, and you cleaned every train and every subway station every night with a special solvent that killed the virus and was also lemon scented. So the whole system smelled like some version of lemons. But remember that, because when you talk about abundance theory, we can't get anything done, we're paralyzed. No, you got every homeless person out of every subway station every night, every train every night. You can do it again. You can clean the system. That was one of the lessons of COVID. But we followed the federal guidance. Federal guidance changed. Your quarantine period was 7 days. No, it was 10 days. No, it was 14 days. And I get it. They were giving the best information that they could. At the end of the day, I take some solace in the fact that if you look at where New York wound up versus the other states, with the rhetoric in the press, you would think New York had one of the highest rates of death in nursing homes, right? I'm sure that's the impression that you were left with from the press. When you look at the facts now, after all is said and done, we were number 38 of all states in terms of the rate of death. So only 12 states had a lower rate of death in nursing homes, which is actually shocking to a lot of people. 37 states, all of which had more notice than we had, because we had it like a year before anyone else. 37 states had a higher rate of death in nursing homes. Only 12 states had a lower rate of death in nursing homes. So, but that fact gets lost because it was minimized by the press. But do I wish there was zero? Yes. And I own those decisions. I made the best decisions I could. With the information we have today, I would make different decisions. Pete Buttigieg's point is right. Closing schools did damage that we didn't expect. Closing small businesses did damage that we didn't repair with the PPE, et cetera. So there were many unanticipated consequences from that.
I want to get to a couple more topics here before we go. Immigration, cooperation with ICE. That's been a huge issue. The Adams administration has been pursuing its policies. Mamdani says no cooperation. How would a Mayor Cuomo work with federal immigration officials when it comes to folks, undocumented migrants here who have a criminal record? How would cooperation work, and to what extent?
Well, I think what has happened, Moshe, is the immigration issue and cooperation with the federal government has become complicated because Mayor Adams' arrangement with President Trump was that President Trump would drop the charges on Mayor Adams, conditioned on his cooperation with the federal immigration policy.
You believe there's a total quid pro quo there?
Well, it was stated. What it stated was and the rationale for the president's dropping of the charges, so that he could cooperate with the immigration officials. And New Yorkers felt betrayed by that. New Yorkers are not Trump people. They're not Trump immigration policy people, and they believe the mayor was making a deal for himself to stay out of jail at their expense. We have what's called sanctuary laws in the state and in the city. It's not just New York City. I signed it on behalf of the state. The sanctuary city laws basically say we follow due process, and people are entitled to due process. And that's needed because you've seen ICE deport people who were American citizens. You have a situation where families are petrified to come out of their homes or send their children to school. So due process. On the other hand, do we harbor a dangerous criminal? Of course not. And if somebody committed a crime, a serious crime, no, we don't want them here. We want a safe city, as we were discussing before. So, but we won't do that by sacrificing due process.
So will you effectively continue what we've seen recently with Adams, where the NYPD is cooperating with ICE when it comes to undocumented migrants with criminal records?
I'm not sure what Mayor Adams is doing. He has pledged cooperation, and that seems to be a variable standard. I will live with the sanctuary city laws. The federal government just sued New York to overturn the sanctuary city laws. They did that with other cities and states across the nation. They have lost. I believe they will lose that lawsuit again, violates the 10th Amendment. I would be very aggressive in pushing back and bringing that lawsuit. And I believe we win that lawsuit.
You want to get to Israel here real quickly in anti-Semitism. You mentioned it earlier with Mamdani. You've accused him of fueling anti-Semitism, of being divisive on the issue. Do you believe that Zohran Mamdani himself is anti-Semitic?
I have never said whether I believe a person is racist or is a person a bigot or is a person anti-Semitic. That's somebody has to be able to look into your soul. And that's higher than my pay grade. Fueling anti-Semitism, yes. Fueling anti-tolerance, yes. Globalize the Intifada basically says kill Jewish people. You don't discourage the use of that term. He said he's not the word police. Actually, you are the word police, because there is hate crimes. I passed the strongest hate crime laws in the United States. And there is hate speech that incites hate crimes. So you are the word police. And when you say, I discourage global intifada, that's almost like a wink and a nod, right? And this is at a time when you have the shooting in front of the Israeli embassy, et cetera. So anti-Semitism, zero tolerance for anti-Semitism, period. By the way, in New York City, zero tolerance for any discrimination based on race, color, creed. We live with it every day here. We're the most diverse city in the United States of America. You have 180 languages in our public school system. You have to forge community rather than incite division. And as governor, I would make it my point, if any group was being targeted for any reason, after COVID, the China virus, there were acts of harassment, disparagement against people of Asian descent. I came down like a ton of bricks. No anti-Asian, anti-Christian, anti-Muslim, anti-Semitic. No. We need to be tolerant and accepting and less judgmental. Anti-Semitism. You can have a difference of opinion on how Israel is prosecuting the war with Gaza. I do. I mean, you see the pictures of starving children. This just violates basic humanity, right? So yes, you can have differences with the prime minister and the government and what they're doing. That does not justify you being anti-Semitic against Jewish New Yorkers and harassing them and stopping them from going to school at Columbia University, or mocking them because they wear a yarmulke or show the Star of David. One does not justify the other.
Governor, I want to thank you, and we'll end on one light thing. I asked Mayor Adams this: best eat in the city.
Well, what kind of question is that? Best eat?
We have 25,000 restaurants. Is it in your personal kitchen? Is there a specific restaurant that you love?
Best eat in the city for me is my mother's house. That is the best. My mother makes a lasagna that is so good. When you have a taste, you want to cry. It is so good.
How do I get a reservation?
It is exquisite. You have to call me.
Okay.
And we can work it out. But it is a very hard table to get a seat at. What I can say.
Sounds like it. All right, we'll leave it there. I appreciate you chatting with us on so many subjects, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.